How do I deal with the difficulties in my life?
It's a very difficult question. Life is difficult, particularly these days, when we are living in an age which is self obsessed. Self is difficult. Living with the self is very difficult. Living with life is easy. Imagine for a moment if there were no cities, you were in a town 400 years ago. All your worries were your family, and you had no negative feelings towards your family. Very few. But mostly, large family represented strength. You would meet your cousins, your brothers, your sisters, your extended family, and there was no competition who was rich and who was poor, and who was successful and who was a failure. Everybody who had two hands was an asset. So you would meet your friends and family and look at them, and they were your assets. And there were no phones. You would meet them after 7 to 10 days or even after a month. Every time you would see them, so much joy would come in your heart. You met someone familiar, you met someone of your own bloodline. People were not busy with accumulating things, showing off things. People showed off their hearts. People showed off their character. People did not show each other the paints in their homes or their swimming pools or their ponds or their shiny cars. They showed each other character, honesty, truthfulness. Those people became famous. Now actors become famous. You're inspiring to have a fairy tale life. What are actors other than who show you in the most realistic way your imaginations? So that's why you're not happy. That's why you feel so many more difficulties than what is necessary. What you're feeling, the things which you're calling difficulties, are actually burdens of the self, burdens of this modern age, where there are so many toys around you that these toys have become walls, and you have built yourself a cage to live in. And now that cage is haunting the next generation because they feel it, that this life is a cage. That is the reason for the rise of tourism. Hordes of people are escaping that cage. They need holidays. 1,000 years ago, maybe the word holiday was a mystery to people. What does it mean to have a holiday? There was no such thing as holidays, to take a break from life, to run away from where you live, to find peace somewhere else. So you go back to your life, you work hard, and then collect so many things in your home, and then you hate that place and you need to get out of that place for 15 days or 20 days because you can't stand it. It depresses you. So these days, a lot of the difficulties are the difficulties which are generated by keeping the status quo, keeping the status of if you belong to the middle class, or if you belong to the lower middle class, or if you belong to the upper middle class. So these classes have made you into a prisoner. You have to maintain your status. Real difficulties are very different from these difficulties. So shed off all of these cultural difficulties, age difficulties in which you live. This is industrial age. People have to sell you toothbrush. If you don't buy the toothbrush, the company will go bankrupt. So you're flooded with the ads. Don't flood your mind with ads. Free yourself. Half of your difficulties, maybe not even half of your difficulties, 90% of your difficulties are because you're stressed about how you're going to keep your status. Wake up from being a consumer. You need to wake up, and you will realize that life is not too difficult from what it was before. If you took that weight off you, the weight of crowded advertisement in your brain, you will realize that there is a lot of enjoyment in life, even with the difficulties which are present. Man is not supposed to live like this.
Then, what is real difficulty, and how does one deal with that?
Real difficulty is poverty. By poverty, I mean poverty. I do not mean you have less money to collect the things which you want to collect. True poverty. Real difficulty is sickness. And I do not mean that you have too much meat in your system which you haven't digested properly, and because of that you do not sleep. I mean true sickness. Uncomfortable nights is not a sickness. A confused mind is not a sickness. Being obese is not a sickness. These are self-imposed burdens of consumerism. These are not sicknesses. True sickness is when you're really in your bed because you're sick, and you have not played a role in making yourself sick. It is brought to you through the wind or through the water or through the fire or through the earth. So death is a real difficulty. If an old person in your family is dying, that is difficult. So simplify your life and look at yourself in a very simplistic way, and you will see what true difficulties are, what really affects the heart. Not the stresses which you are absorbing in yourself, and it feels like your heart is upset. These days we have learned to absorb stresses of this age, and we become uncomfortable because of those stresses. The stresses of bills, the stresses of maintenance of your status. These are different. True difficulties, organic difficulties are different. Now look around you. How many people do you know who actually have true difficulties? And how many people are complaining actually about this industrial age? With all my experience with people, I have found people in difficulties, true difficulties, but they are very few. Mostly people are stressed about how to behave properly, how to remain mentally healthy with this race of industrial age. So separate the two, and I can assure you that you will come to the conclusion that you are very blessed. So when I see people, I see them most of the time complaining about getting ahead in this industrial age. And just like in the old days, the amount of difficulties which befall on people are almost exactly the same. I mean, how many times your mother is going to die in your life? And how many times your father is going to die in your life? It's only going to happen once. It happens once to everybody. So you see, if you cut away these burdens of the industrial age, human experience is still the same, more or less. But this other part which I talked about, it's the other part which is so confusing to so many people that their quality of life has been affected in a very, very negative way. So separate the two and you will see it clearly. And you are very capable of dealing with natural difficulties which will come to you. Every soul is capable of dealing with their natural difficulties. It's a law. Destiny has to protect you. It has to. So your destiny is the shield. It will not let calamities befall you which you are incapable of carrying.